Hi there, legal pagers. You are all so awesome. And I just wanted to shout out that you're freaking amazing. I have really just loved this journey with you on the Legal Page podcast so far, and I cannot wait to give you more business and legal tips. Now, today is another one of my quick business tips, and I am specifically talking about mentors. Because we all have them and we all use them, but it's important to find the right one for you. But to do so, you have to be introspective and you have to think about what you want first. And then you pair that with someone that can lead you the best way possible. So without further ado, let's get into this mentorship discussion, friends. You're listening to the Legal Page podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. As a reminder, before we get into this episode, I am legally obligated to give my disclaimer. So I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. All legal information I talk about on this episode is intended for the masses and a large variety of different businesses. I am only your attorney when you hire me and we sign an engagement letter for me to work specifically on your legal issues. Please feel free to seek out another attorney in your hometown if you need specific legal advice or contact me for more information. Alrighty, here's the episode, friends. Oh, I'm so excited for today's episode. I hope you all had a fabulous Memorial Day weekend and that you took some time off and just relaxed. I am going to try to start off some podcast episodes from now on with some reviews from our listeners. So I'm starting today's episode with our review of the week from J Joy Love 4. This was on iTunes, and she says, Paige is so great at explaining all things legal and making it incredibly interesting to listen to. She breaks it all down and makes it easy to understand. Her podcast episodes have been so helpful to me running my business. I really loved episode 10 and 11. Thanks so much, lady, for your review. It really means a lot, and it encourages me each time I see a review like this. I continue to produce and create this free podcast because of each of you. You are really the reason behind it all. And if you'd be so kind, I, of course, would love a review from you on iTunes. So if you're listening, just type in the Legal Page podcast on iTunes, scroll down to where it says write a review, and then just post your review there. I'll make sure I do a shout out, like I said, to one special person each week. Alrighty, now let's get into the episode. Today I am chatting about mentors because there are a lot of mentors out there in our online space. There are also many, many mentors around you in your hometown, in your daily life, in your surrounding area. But it's important to find a mentor that is right for you. And I'm just going to keep honing that in today on the episode because mentors can be so incredibly vital to your success, but they do cost money. And I want to ensure that you're paying someone that is actually going to benefit your business and help you professionally and personally, and not just any old someone that's out there that looks like they could potentially help you, but you really just have no idea. So over the years, I have worked with plenty of mentors, from Jenna Kutcher, who we all know and love, to smaller business coaches like Emma Natter, to my hometown business mentors like my therapist, Carrie, to online coaches like Amy Porterfield through a course that I've taken from her. So I've also had tons of mentors in law school, in college, in high school. These are professors. These are mentors that I look up to in the legal world. They have all shaped me into the person that I am today. But what I have learned from finding mentors is that there are a few secrets to figuring out which mentor is going to be the best fit for you. And while some people can rant and rave about their life coach, I'll bet that they haven't been the best mentors for other clients that they've worked for, because it's very, very, very specific to one person. Now, mentorship and education is this huge blossoming industry right now, you guys. It's lucrative. It's lucrative, yes, but it's also super needed. So people are starting online businesses every minute, and they need to reach out to someone else that has done what they've done and can help them set up their business for success. Now, navigating a new career is challenging, and there are tons of moving parts. So it's really beyond helpful to have someone there to show you the way and handhold you. And the right mentor can really shape the course of your business because it can ultimately help you generate more income, more notoriety, more clout in the industry, more followers, you name it. They also can help you scale when your business is more of a mature business, and they can be there to tell you yes or no when you can't make a decision for yourself on some type of project that you're working on. I've learned after working in the online industry for over 8 years that mentorship is one of the most undervalued and beneficial resources that entrepreneurs have. Most people just don't know what they don't know. And you only have one brain. We're often working by ourselves at home or in a coffee shop with no one to bounce our ideas off of. And that's where a really good mentor comes in. And that's why I've spent money on mentors over the years. And I truly, truly, firmly believe that you got to put your money where your mouth is. And so I have done so, and it has led me to incredible success in my 2 online businesses. But I often get asked, Paige, how do you find the right one? I mean, there are so many out there. So I wanted to share with you all my 6 little secrets on finding the best mentor for you and your business. Now, the first is to find someone that knows your industry. Obviously, I don't want you working with someone in an outside industry. I just really don't think that's a good place to start. And this episode is really geared toward people who are looking for their first mentor. So start by asking your friends in your industry about what people they respect and who they would recommend as a coach or mentor. I also don't want you to rule out colleagues, because what I've learned is that even if they don't have a per se professional coaching program, they actually could be the perfect mentor for you, and they'll be right alongside you as a colleague, which sometimes is incredibly beneficial. So don't rule those out. Now, you also want someone who knows the ins and outs of your industry, because they are going to give you more specific and concrete advice. So I've been in programs where people just give me general business fluff, and I can't really apply it to my business. And I've seen this as people have been listening to podcast episodes, or they get pulled into an online course because the marketing tactics are so good and they have FOMO, so they jump in it. But then they realize they can't really apply any of the general business fluff to their business. So you want to make sure that someone knows your industry backwards and forwards, especially when you're trying to get your first mentor, or you're looking for someone, that's one of your first one-on-one business coaches. That's really, really important. Of course, you can also research online for an expert in coaching people like yourself, or the industry you're in. You can Google it, or just start asking around on Instagram. You can do Instagram polls. And if you have potential mentors in mind, you might even not even know that you have these potential mentors in mind, because oftentimes you want to look into people where you consume their content. So what blog posts are you reading all of the time? What self-help books are you reading? What podcast episodes are you listening to? So those type of people could be potential mentors for you. And you are applying their advice before you even meet them and decide for them to be your one-on-one mentor. So make sure you look into those people as well. Also, just before we move on to my second secret, I just want to say that there just might be someone as an obvious mentor, someone you've already been talking to, someone who you wouldn't necessarily consider a quote unquote mentor, but more of a friend, or more of someone that's just helped you along the way, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But those people could actually become your one-on-one mentor. And so you might want to look into that as well. It doesn't hurt to reach out to these people and just be like, hey, would you consider this? I don't know if you have a coaching program, but if you don't, like, what would this cost to work with you? I'm just really wanting someone that can give me some more one-on-one advice. So the second secret is to select a mentor that has connections. And this is incredibly vital for anyone who is kind of newer to the online world and industry space. So it's really helpful to choose someone that knows other people and has bigger connections and networking circles than you. Because you can't grow and expand if your mentor is on the same level. So while a colleague may be incredibly beneficial as a mentor, you would definitely skip this second secret if you chose them, because oftentimes they're kind of just on the same playing field as you. And one of the big reasons that I joined, say, Jenna Kutcher's mastermind, it was her in-person mastermind last year, is that her circle had all kinds of connections that I wanted to get in. And you know what? It worked. So about 5 of her friends and clients are now my legal clients. And then that was a snowball effect from there. So with more people knowing who I was and giving word of mouth regarding my legal business and just knowing me, knowing Jenna, that connection was easier for people to book me, and it resonated with people easier. They connected the two of us together. And they have since I opened the legal page. And so that's been incredibly beneficial. And there's other people that I have just chosen to work with, not only because they're phenomenal business owners, but just because I really, really like their networking circles. And so you want to be introspective and think, okay, what is my ideal client? Like, who is this circle of ideal clients out there? And then I would think about 5 big name people in that little circle. And then how can you get an in through one of them? That's really beneficial to select your mentor as well, which is why, of course, these mentorships like Jenna Kutcher's, Lewis Howes, Brennan Burchard, all of these people, they have incredibly phenomenal networking circles, which is why their masterminds and their online business coaching costs an arm and a leg. It costs a lot of money, but it's worth it. And I can tell you that right now, I have made my money back at least 3-fold, if not 5-fold. So it was worth it, friends. The third secret to finding a mentor is to find one that costs a good chunk of change. So that was a pretty decent transition from what I just said, because I want you to be introspective here and think about what you are worth. That's the question I want you to ask yourself first. And I remember when people found out how much I paid for the Jenna Kutcher mastermind, and they thought I was insane. And like I said, I've made that money back, and I'm only 6 months out from the end of her mastermind in 2018. So it works. And bleeding money, the one thing I can say, bleeding money is one of these terms that we use in the legal world when you're going into court. So if you decide to actually go to court instead of settle some type of lawsuit, we call it bleeding money, because you're spending money every single second you're working on something, and you're paying for lots of attorney's fees. But in terms of this little phrase, I'm going to say bleeding money makes you work hard. So don't underestimate how hard you will work to get a return on investment if you spend a crap ton of money at the beginning. And that's kind of what I learned. I was super scared to write that check. I think it was the biggest check I've ever written to Jenna. And I was just paying a shit ton of money. Excuse my language. It was a lot. It was a lot for me. It was a lot for Marco and I at that time. He was what are you doing? And I was well, let's just think of this as me taking a college course, but we're not having any student loans with it. We're just writing a check and doing it all in one fell swoop. But what I learned is that paying a lot of money motivated me beyond belief. I actually now don't believe in coaching programs that are $50 a month or $100, here and there, because to be honest, you are never going to have the incentive to implement at all. You're just not going to. That's kind of just a little bit of money, that's never going to motivate you. When you spend thousands, you want that investment to have a return. And so you're going to work really hard to get it. So I want you to also get stuff out of it. And I remember specifically like some online courses that I've taken, even if they're like $400 to $500, it's a lot easier for me to just like stop the course in the middle of it and not complete it and not finish it. Because you can like reconcile that in your mind and be like, well, I finished, the first 3 modules. I just didn't finish the last 2. I feel like I got a good benefit out of it. That's because you're not spending a ton of money, like in terms of what you feel like you're worth. And if you're spending thousands and you truly, truly believe in this mentor, you're going to soak up every little bit of information he or she gives you, and you are going to work your little fanny off to try to get that return on investment, at least like 100% returned and then some, because that is where the success really lies, is when you're 2-timesing that investment or 3-timesing that investment. So just remember that like that $50, whatever that like online membership is or something, it's just a quick dime on both ends. It's easy for you to buy and it's easy for you to forget about. And then in turn, it's easy for that coach or mentor to put out there and then really not give it their all or care a lot about you specifically because you're only paying $50 for it. They just want this like big group of people in there to potentially help one another and them not helping you as much one-on-one. To really round out this secret number 3, I just want you to sit back for a second and think about how much money you've spent on education in the past 12 months. So I've seen tons of people spend $100 here, $75 there, $50 there for small little business nuggets. When in fact, you could have saved up and purchased that $2,000 mentorship or coaching program that's incredibly one-on-one, that you're going to get so much benefit out of, that you are going to have way more incentive to have that ROI on. And it could probably move the needle forward much, much bigger in big, big ways for you than these other small little bite-sized programs. So I want you to just contemplate that for a second and figure out, is there a way that I could, as a business owner, moving forward, figure out how to say no to these small little nuggets in order for me to have a large chunk of change that I can invest in my education, say in the coming months or in 6 months or in 12 months, or maybe just for 2020. We're 6 months out. Like, you need to think about it. Okay, we're on to the 4th secret. So secret number 4 is to figure out what type of structure is best for you to learn and to implement things that you want to in your business. So I want you to find some mentors, narrow it down, and then I want you to ask about his or her style of coaching. So some coaches have more defined systems. Some are certified with like coaching programs, and some just have more organic approaches to their coaching. So make sure that you interview and research at least 2 to 3 people that you've narrowed down to ensure that you are well aligned with their coaching style. Because the worst thing that could happen is that you get into it and you're like a type A person like myself, and you like hand holding and you like structure and you like PDFs and you want like check boxes, and this person is just a little more woo woo is what I like to call it. And that works for some people, but like that does not work for me. I don't want like a woo woo coach that's like, rainbows and glitter and stars and like everything's going to be okay. And they're just like there to really encourage you and help you. But I need more like concrete learning. That's like my style of learning. So if you're like that, you want to make sure you find a coach like that. There's also, regarding the type of structure of you learning, there's a big difference with one-on-one coaching and group coaching. And it's also vital to figure out if you want to do it in person or online, retreats or no retreats. And there's also that big new mastermind model as well. So all of these different structures have unique ways of mentorship and learning. So you have to figure out what style you want and what's going to be the best environment for you and your business at that time. Remember, one-on-one coaching is really helpful because you can sit down and really just like spew all of your things that you have been thinking about and get that mentor's specific advice related to yourself. When it's more group coaching and mastermind coaching, they'll give more general information to the masses, and then you will usually rely on people within that group as well to get their 2 cents. That's kind of how masterminds work. But some masterminds, like my own mastermind that I run, my online mastermind, has kind of a quasi effect. So there's like the group coaching effect, but then I also implement more one-on-one during group coaching calls. People have specific time to ask their questions related only to their business, so on and so forth. So you just want to like figure out what the mentorship program, if it is like a coaching program, what it is all about. And then for like masterminds, you can have an online mastermind or you could have an in-person mastermind. And sometimes those have retreats. And when there is retreats, you need to figure out how much time are you willing to give this specific mentorship program. And do you have additional funds for retreats? Because the program itself will cost a certain chunk of change. And then you have to, on a top of that, pay for airfare, food, lodging, and all of that can add up. So in that respect, you just want to think, when would that additional cost be worth it to have that in-person and one-on-one time with your dream mentor? For me, having that one-on-one time with Jenna and having 3 retreats and being there in person with her was totally worth it last year. So that is secret number 4. Just really, really figure out what type of structure is best for you to learn and is best for your budget right now and the time that you can give. So secret number 5 is decide if you need more of a therapist or more of a hard ass. And this is a biggie because you have to figure out what type of coach you want. Now, remember back in middle school when you had like that basketball coach who yelled at you and screamed things and maybe even broke a clipboard? How did that make you feel? And then what about the coach who cheered you on and saw you were struggling and stayed late after practice and gave everyone a trophy at the end of the season? Did you love that? Those are 2 very different types of coaches. And do you want someone that is going to handhold you and build you up and make you feel good? Because that is how you create your best work. And I see these type of mentors really helping people that are newer, that like to take things slower, are more emotional learners and business owners. They have a hard time taking constructive criticism. And even people who have like a crap ton going on, like moms with kids, or people with a full-time job and like 2 side hustles. Those people sometimes need more of someone who is really going to just support them and be a shoulder for them to lean on and will take things slow and really aren't going to like give them concrete answers, but really just help them decipher and work through a problem. But it really depends on you and your needs and your style of learning. Because for me and for some people, most of the people that I coach, they want someone who's going to give real life talk. So like the no bullshit type of coaches that aren't afraid to say what you're doing isn't working and that scrapping things and going back to the beginning is best. It's like a painful type of coaching experience. It's slightly painful to have these coaches, but it's sometimes what you need to light a fire underneath you and get going and get scaling and get the needle moving. And I have found that as we just talked about these 2 kind of styles of mentorship and learning and coaching, even if you think you are more likely to be drawn to the former, the more like mushy gushy emotional feeling type of coach, I want you to challenge yourself and think about if you could step into the uncomfortable zone, because of course we've heard this before. The uncomfortable zone is where you learn the most and where you grow the most. If you can get into that uncomfortability with a mentor that's like giving you constructive criticism and saying no like 10 times instead of saying yes every time you have a new idea, and really just trying to work with you in kind of a little more of a stern way, because then you're going to be uncomfortable and then you're going to really become successful in that uncomfortability. Try that. Like, I just I challenge you, just try that and see if it will work for you, and vice versa. So for someone like me, I have really tried to, I don't do that woo-woo like stuff. That's not totally me. And I'll never forget when I walked into my therapist here in Missoula, Montana, her, room or whatever, like her office. And we had our first meeting and she was so woo-woo. And she like kind of told me that, and she kind of knew that like I wasn't going to be super adaptive to that style of mentoring and therapy right away. But she like really laid the groundwork and was like, Paige, I want you to try it. Like it might be good for you because you're so used to having like black and white and concrete answers and yeses and nos. And like, that's just, you're a type A person, you're a perfectionist. Like that's kind of what you're looking for. And so when I just opened myself up to that possibility, that's been the best therapist I've ever had. And I go back to her time and time again because it's like this one safe space that I feel okay being a little like emotional and woo-woo. Because it's like this one time that I'm okay being a little more emotional and woo-woo. And so I challenge myself to step outside of the box there and find a therapist and mentor in that respect that could help me, that wasn't necessarily, what I thought was going to be the best style for myself. So I challenge you, of course, you're going to like find one that fits what you want. And I would say go with that person first. But then after you've had a few mentors or therapists or coaches, like challenge yourself to try something new because those are people that are really going to help you. All right. So the very final sixth secret that I have is to stick with the person for a good amount of time. This is usually where I see people fall off the wagon with a good coach or a good mentor. So I'm not saying that you need to sign like a 12-month long coaching contract. You definitely want to test drive before you buy, but you have to give it time to work. So people that get bitter about how much money they've invested in a coach or a mentor without reaping any benefits is probably because they haven't done the work effectively and they didn't allow enough time for the mentor suggestions to sink in and work. I like to call this the shiny object syndrome, where you like buy a course and you don't finish it, and then you're immediately on to the next group coaching experience because all of your friends decided to do it and you just had major FOMO. Everything's shiny and it looks really awesome and you definitely want to get in on it, but then you never ever finish what you started. Now, good coaches will challenge you. They will push you. They will make you uncomfortable. That's their job. And you're never going to grow until you are in that uncomfortable zone that I was talking about. But you have to be willing to hustle and work hard and get to that finish line. That uncomfortable zone that I just chatted about takes time to get to, and it doesn't happen right away. And this is where I see people like they never ever grow, or they're like, that program didn't work for me, or that coach was silly and that coach didn't help me and it was just a bunch of BS. And mentorship and coaching is just not a one-stop shop fix-all solution. Because you guys, that's not business or reality. You have to be willing to stick to it. You have to be willing to finish a program. And that is, again, coming full circle here as we finish out this episode. That's where the money comes in. If you are willing to pay a little bit more for something, I bet that for sure you're going to have the incentive to finish that program because you've paid a lot of money to get into it. It's just one of those things like, what are you worth? What are you willing to pay? And how much are you willing to pay to ensure that you're going to finish the mentorship or coaching program that you have? So you guys, I could go on and on about coaching, but I am not about to make this episode like 5 hours long because I could. I am a coach and I have also had lots of business mentors. I know personally that I am not a good mentor for some, but I am a really good mentor for others. And the same goes for those that I've selected to work for me. They are a really, really good fit for myself, but I necessarily wouldn't put them with, say, one of my colleagues that I just don't think would be a good fit. So you want to ensure that you choose the right mentor. And that is really important. And that is why I suggest following these 6 little secrets each time you are looking for a mentor. I hope this episode has been helpful to you and that you have at least gleaned some insight into mentorship and coaching that will be beneficial to your business's success. Thanks so much for tuning into the Legal Paige podcast today. I will see you all next week. As always, please feel free to reach out to us on the Legal Paige community on Facebook. You can just type that into the search bar. Our group is growing each and every day, and there's really phenomenal business owners across the country in there. We're asking business questions and legal questions all the time. And so you can gain a lot of information and education from our group. Remember, that is the Legal Paige community on Facebook. Of course, you can also find me at the Legal Paige on Instagram, and I'd be happy to DM you if you have any further questions on mentorship or coaching. All right. See you next week, guys. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.